Hello friend, welcome back. This video is all about making this beautiful baby hat. I also made a dress to match my hat, so please check the description box to see how I made this beautiful dress to match my hat. So to make this cap, the first thing you want to do is to measure the head circumference. The head circumference I'm working with is 18 inches. So I'm going to be dividing the head circumference by 6 inches. So after measuring the head circumference, whatever measurement you get, go ahead and divide it by 6 inches. So the head circumference I'm working with is 18 inches. So after measuring my head circumference and dividing it by 6 inches, 18 inches divided by 6 inches is 3 inches. So I'll go ahead and mark 3 inches on my pattern paper, and I'm going to go up by 5 inches. So 5 inches is the height of the cap. So this is the standard measurement for a baby's cap. So I'm just going to mark 3 by 5. So after marking my 3 by 5 inches, I'm going to fold this paper into 2. After folding into 2, at this open end, I'm going to go up by 1 inch. After going up by 1 inch, I'm just going to make a curve from this 1 inch meeting this point. So I'm not going to make it straight, I'm just going to curve it a little bit like this. So as you can see, it's not looking straight. So just go ahead and curve from this point to where you marked your 1 inch. So I'll go ahead and cut this out. So after cutting, your pattern should look like this. So I'll be using this pattern to cut out my 6 panels. I'll be using this pattern to cut on my fabric, but I'll be leaving ½ inch seam allowance all around this pattern. After marking, I'll go ahead and cut this out. So after cutting, I'm just going to keep my pattern aside, and I'll be using this one to cut another 5 panels because I'll be needing 6 of these to make my cap. After cutting out the 6 panels, I'm going to be using this to cut out 6 panels again on my Ankara fabric. After using my jean pattern to cut out another 6 patterns on my Ankara fabric, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to pick 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to take this to my sewing machine. I'm going to sew this by ½ inch. I'll be joining these 3 patterns together by ½ inch. Take this to your sewing machine and sew this by ½ inch. So I'm going to sew this by ½ inch. I'm going to open this up. I'm going to pick this and sew by ½ inch. I'm going to sew 3 separately, and I'll sew these 3 separately, and I'll do the same thing on my Ankara fabric. So I've gone ahead to join my patterns. So just sew 1, 2, 3 together like this, and 1, 2, 3 like this. I'm going to sew 3 separately and 3 separately, and I did the same thing for my Ankara fabric. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to pick one of these, and I'm going to pick the second one. I'll make them meet at the center like this. After bringing them together like this, I'm going to take this back to my sewing machine. I'm going to be sewing them together from this point to this point, and I'm going to do the same thing for the Ankara fabric. So after sewing like this, after joining my cap like this, you can see the shape of my cap is out already. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to pick one of these. I will be measuring this round. So I'll be measuring this. So remember, the head circumference I'm working with is 18 inches. Even after measuring, I still have my 18 inches. So I'll be using this 18 inches to cut out the brim of my cap. I'll be using this pattern paper to cut out my brim before transferring it to the fabric. So I'm just going to bend this like this. 1 and 2. After measuring around this, I got my 18 inches. So I'm going to be dividing 18 inches by 4. After dividing by 4, at this point, just go ahead and place the measurement you got after dividing by 4. So I'll be using the measurement to form a curve like this. So from this point, I'm going to be creating an arc like this, still holding my tape at this point. I'm only moving this part while I'm still holding this part of my tape, and I'll be measuring this round. So just the way you cut out your flay. So after marking this, from this point, from where I have my mark, I'll be marking out the height of my brim. The height I'll be using for the brim of this cap is 2 inches. So I'm just going to mark out 2 inches all around this. And I'll be adding 1 inch for my seam allowance. After cutting this, I'll be using this to cut on my fabrics. So after cutting out my flay on my jean fabric and Ankara, this is going to serve as the brim of my cap. So before attaching the brim to the cap, I'm going to be attaching the adjustment rope. So I've gone ahead to create the rope I'll be using for my adjustment. I'm going to pick one of this rope. I'll take this to my sewing machine and I'm going to stitch it like this, and at the opposite side I'll be fixing the other one. So I'm going to do this before fixing the brim. So after fixing my adjustment rope, I'm just going to flip this over like this. I'm going to pick my brim. So I'm going to fix right side facing right side. So the first thing I'm going to do to make this easy for you, I'll go ahead and pin this. So I'm just going to pick one point of this. I'm going to be pinning the 4 points of this brim. So I'll pick the other side, the opposite side, and I'm going to pin. I'm going to pick the middle of this and the middle of this, and I'll pin. So after pinning, this is what I have. I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and I'm going to start sewing this. So this is from one pinned point to another pinned point. So whatever excess you have, you're just going to pleat it, a little pleat. Whatever excess you have, just pleat the excess. So I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and I'll be sewing this round, and I'll be repeating the same thing on the jean fabric. So I've attached my brim to my cap. Isn't this looking beautiful already? So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to pick one of these. I'm going to pick this. I'm going to bring them together like this. So right side facing right side. So I'm making sure this rope is inside, so I'm not going to sew on it. So I'll take this to my sewing machine and I'll be sewing this by 1/2 inch. So but I'm not going to sew, I'm not going to close it up completely. I'll be leaving about 3 inches opening that I'll be using to turn out my cap. So after sewing, I'll go to where I have my opening and I'll be turning this out. After turning, I'm going to be giving this a very good press. I'll be pressing. I'm going to be ironing my brim. So for this part where I have my opening, and I'll be using my hemming gum to seal it up. So if you have this pad, just go ahead and use it to iron the top of your cap, just the way I'm doing right now. After ironing this properly, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and I'm going to be sewing. I will be making a top stitch around this to keep my lining in place. After top stitching this round to keep my lining in place, I'll go ahead and fix my bow, which is totally optional, but I believe this is going to make it look more beautiful. So just go ahead and fix your bow, your rose, on any side of the cap. You can fix it at the front or by the side, but I'll be fixing this by the side of my hat. So my cap is ready and looking very beautiful. Let me know what you think about this tutorial in the comment section. Please do not forget to hit the subscribe button, give this video a like. Thanks for watching and see you in my next video. Also check the description box for the tutorial on how I made a beautiful dress to match my cap. Bye.